In this video, I'm going to share 3 keys to managing people at work. And specifically, we're going to talk about how to make your team members feel more valued and more loyal. And that's particularly important these days when we have staffing shortages. The whole idea is to keep your team members without necessarily having to pay more in salaries, perks, and benefits. I'm Jeff Mowatt. When I speak at conferences on customer service strategies, managers often lament how hard it is to recruit and retain good frontline employees. Unfortunately, managers often assume that the only way to get your team members to stick around is to offer more in terms of salaries and perks and so on. Unfortunately, that's actually fixing the wrong problem. According to Marcus Buckingham of the Gallup organization, the number one reason employees quit: personal feelings about their immediate supervisor. So, in other words, I guess if you have a lot of turnover and you're a manager, some people would say, well, don't take it personally. They're lying. I'm not. You're the problem. Now, before you kind of roll your eyes and go, okay, Jeff, we do all that touchy-feely stuff about employee recognition. We've got that covered. Well, let me ask you honestly, when was the last time you and your fellow managers and supervisors actually had some professional training on how to make your employees feel valued? And I'm talking specifically about today's employees, where there's a lot of options for them to go somewhere else. So in this video, we're going to talk about 3 strategies other than paying more money on how to make your employees feel more valued, even when they've got a lot of options around them. Here's a tip. Be sure to watch this right until the end, because my last tip is about how to make even poor performers feel more engaged and motivated, again, other than paying more. The first key to employee recognition, number 1, is be specific. Telling an employee, hey, you're doing a good job, I suppose is better than nothing, but sometimes it can actually create an unintended result in that sometimes the employees think, hey, I'm doing a great job, and they can start to coast. So being a general in terms of a compliments, just saying you're doing a good job or you're all doing a good job, everybody, frankly, I don't think has much impact. Contrast that to when we're specific about the behavior that we're complimenting. So for example, rather than saying to a team member, gosh, Biff, you did a great job with that customer who was upset, well done. Instead, if we said, gosh, Biff, you did a great job with that customer who was upset, because first thing you did is you listened without interrupting them, you empathized, you took ownership, you mentioned it was frustrating. And then when you not only resolved the problem, you also upgraded the solution so that it made them feel good about the inconvenience and hassle. Great job, Biff. Now, Biff knows exactly what you recognize and reward and are looking for. So Biff is now in a position to reinforce that positive behavior. And this is so vital for any leadership position, is before just saying, use this with your family members, rather than saying to your sweetheart, you look nice today, if instead you can say, gosh, I really like how that blouse matches your eyes. Well, now it's construed as being honest, truthful, and observant, and it's going to have much more credibility. Before I get to my next tip on managing people at work, if you're finding this to be useful, then be sure to like, subscribe, and comment on it, because I have lots more videos just like this, and you can receive them automatically as I release them. The second key to employee recognition is catch them in the act. Years ago, I was invited to do some training in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And while I was there, I trained at a local gym, and across from the weight room, there was a childcare area. In that childcare area, there was this huge computer-generated sign that said, catch them being good. Now, obviously, these are preschool kids. They can't even read, but that sign was meant for the supervisors, the child care providers who were there. And the intention was that don't just pay attention to the kids when they're misbehaving, which sometimes, as a parent, sometimes, I've got 2 daughters who are now grown 18 and 21-year-olds, but when they're little, sometimes we only pay attention when they're misbehaving. And the whole premise of that sign was really look for them providing positive behaviors and recognize that. Well, I also believe that's true for employees. In fact, You remember years ago, the management guru, Ken Blanchard, he wrote the book, 1 Minute Manager. He said this, he said, the role of a manager is to catch people in the act of doing things approximately right as often as possible. I think that's really good advice for all of us. As supervisors, if you happen to see one of your team members who's what's burning the midnight oil, they're working a little later after hours, you walk up to them and you maybe just hand them that cup of coffee, say, you take cream and sugar, right? Thanks for sticking around. I appreciate you doing that. We've caught them in the act. And that coffee is going to taste pretty good. They're going to realize that, hey, my boss noticed me. So in order to really make employees feel valued, it's going beyond what once a year performance appraisal, which they forget about that at performance review time. Instead, if we can catch them in the act, catch them being good, that's one of our roles, and it's going to have much more impact than having annual reviews on their performance. I hope you're finding this to be helpful. Speaking of which, before I get to my last tip on managing people at work, I think if you like this video, you're going to love my tips. You'll find them for free at jeffsbusinesstips.com. Remember I said this last tip would make even marginal performers feel more valued and engaged? Well, here it is. The third key to employee recognition is tailor it to the person. You know that it's pretty easy to find ways to recognize and reward your star performers. I mean, they're doing such a great job. It's easy to, for them, say, hey, you did such a great job on that project. We've got this new, bigger project, and we'd like to put you in charge of that. It's easy to give them more responsibility, and star performers are typically pretty good at that. They like that. They like taking on tasks. So that's great for a star performer. The problem is for our marginal performers out there, if you talk about, hey, we talked about the importance of you arriving on time 3 weeks ago. You're consistently early for everything that we've got here, so we're going to give you a bigger project. Well, the response might be, you are? How much more are you going to pay me for this? So the idea that we're going to treat everyone equally when it comes to recognizing is, I think, ill-conceived. We want to treat our employees fairly, but not necessarily equally. Instead, we want to tailor the recognition to the abilities of that employee. So yes, for a star performer, you might want to give them more responsibility. However, when it comes to a marginal performer, we might say, if we talked about the importance of you arriving on time for meetings and when you show up for work 3 weeks ago. Well, I've been noticing over the last 3 weeks that you have consistently been 5 minutes early for everything that you're expected to attend. So tell you what, normally we knock off at 4 o'clock. If you got things wrapped up and you want to head home now, take off now. And they're like, Biff's like, I'm gone, bye. And they leave. Now, funny thing is, Biff gets home early and their sweetheart spouse roommate says, you're home early. What happened? Well, actually, I got to go a little sooner. And then the person they're living with is going, really? You? Oh, wow. Okay. And they get some recognition at home for doing a good job. So the whole premise is that, yes, for a marginal performer, we need to recognize them too, but we need to think about what's important to them. And for them, it might be just to get home early. And if we are recognizing them for being consistently on time now, well, then maybe a few minutes off early would do the job for them. So yeah, we want to recognize employees, but we don't want to treat every employee the same. They just frankly don't have the same capabilities. So our third tip for recognizing and making employees feel valued is tailor that recognition to that individual. All right, let's recap. And as I'm talking about the 3 keys to employee recognition, I'm going to ask you to post in the comment section below, which of these are you using most often to recognize your employees? Is it number 1, making sure that our comments and our feedback to our employees is specific? Is it the second? Is it making sure that we are providing immediate feedback? We are catching them in the act of doing things approximately right as often as possible? Or are you finding the most useful approach that you're using is number 3, and that is tailoring it to the individual, making sure that the compliment and the recognition is tailored to the abilities of that employee. Let me just close with leaving you with this one thought when it comes to paying higher wages. The demographers are saying that these staffing shortages are not going to go away anytime soon. With that dismal outlook, perhaps it's time to look at training your supervisors with some fundamental skills on engaging their employees. One thing is certain, to reduce staff turnover, it's less costly to pay a well-thought, well-timed compliment than to pay more wages. I'm Jeff Mowatt. I hope you found that to be helpful. And for more of these types of tips, you'll find them for free at jeffsbusinesstips.com. See you next time.